All right, there we go. I have pushed the record button, get us started. So I'm just going to quickly say thank you all for joining us for the March edition of the North Precinct Advisory Council. We really don't have any announcements for this month. So what we're going to do is dive in with our speaker for the month. Jennifer Tenorio is a community service officer supervisor with Seattle Police Department. And she is going to give us an overview about what they do. And with that, I'm going to just go ahead and hand it over to you, Jen, and thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We've been part of this council, I think, since the unit came back, but I don't know if we've done this presentation yet. And even if we have, it's always nice to touch base with new faces and people. So I'm going to do my best to use a multi-screen system here, but if I'm not looking at you, that's why. And of course, now someone is vacuuming. So forgive me for what might be if it's too much background noise, let me know and I'll pause. Okay, but so what is the Community Service Officer Unit? I'm going to give you the fast version and try to answer all the questions I was provided ahead of time. Oh, okay, guys, am I going to figure out how to hit next? So, in general, the Community Service Officer Unit we're part of the Seattle Police Department. And our mission is to sort of help build that bridge between the community and the department, while also, serving our community. So not just on patrol calls with officers, but also like getting out and hearing the needs of our community. And I can give, I'll get into more detail about that. But in this picture, we are actually helping a local restaurant that has just been prolifically tagged with graffiti. We helped a local youth group, help repaint their building. So who's in our team? We are part of the Relational Policing Bureau of the Seattle Police Department. We are led by a lieutenant, so we report to Lieutenant Brandon James, who then reports to a captain and then assistant chief within the department. There are 4 supervisors and 20 people, so we have 4 teams of 5 on this CSO team. We are hiring for 4 open positions right now. We just closed the application and we'll be starting interviews soon. So I'm very excited about getting back up to a full staff. We're an incredibly diverse group. It's such a remarkable group of people to work with. We come from a ton of different backgrounds, some former law enforcement, including myself, lots of former social workers, people working in CPS and other human services, veteran services. And so we bring all those skill sets here to the Seattle community. And our primary function is to connect people in the Seattle community with resources. So having these incredible backgrounds allows us to get to know those service providers here in the Seattle area and connect our community and our local business owners to services whenever they're in need. So where did we come from? The CSO, the Community Service Officer Unit, is not new. There was CSOs back in the 1970s, all the way up until the way the story has been told is that based on funding and budget cuts after 9/11 in 2001, different priorities were shifted, and the department ended up disbanding the CSO unit in early 2004. And in 2018, they asked for community feedback. And so the community sat down and went through like, what did the CSOs do before? Can we bring them back? And then our unit was actually hired back in at the end of 2019. Bam, 2020 brings us a pandemic. And as we all know, that really slowed down lots of different growth that, all businesses and all aspects of life. But the CSO unit was very slow in getting back up on their feet since we had a whole year of not really, having a regular system. But the community asked for us to come back, and this is some of the feedback that the 2018 community conversations around bringing back the CSO unit. So where can you find the CSO units? So we are all city, which means that we can go anywhere, right? Whereas North Precinct officers are going to be assigned to North Precinct, except for in the event of a very important need that might have a precinct cross the border. Whereas CSOs are everywhere. We have liaisons to each community or to each precinct. But because we don't have, a ton of people and we are a 7-day-a-week operation, it often will be that you're covering both East and West, or there's only one person covering North. Or if we have certain events, there might be 2 teams in North, but no one in South for the day. We do our best to cover the entire city. And when patrol calls for us, we respond to wherever in the city that is. We do stay within city boundaries. There's exceptions to that for events, or if there's, somebody was in a vehicle accident here in city limits and they need a ride home, we might take them to Burien or Linwood, somewhere outside of city limits. We are located on the 4th floor of the Seattle Police Department headquarters, which is where I'm at right now. What do we look like? If you haven't seen a CSO out in the wild yet, this is what we drive. We have 2 different types of vehicles, and there's actually a 3rd vehicle now. We have a small SUV because we do end up doing quite a bit of transporting. And sometimes people have luggage when they're, or like if it's let's say a domestic violence victim, and we're moving them to to safer place with family, they might have quite a few belongings with them. So we were able to get a larger vehicle to help with those sorts of transports. So this is all of the data. I wanted to sort of give you guys an idea of just like how prolific our work has been. And every year we've just grown exponentially. And this is all of the stats for 2023. We responded to or initiated over 5,000 events within the city. North Precinct, let's see, 1,348. So that's our 2nd largest precinct that we're working in. And we respond to just about anything. So I thought that this was a really good visual of what kinds of calls CSOs might be on. And it's everything from, an assist the public to prowler or mischief, or suspicious circumstances. So what that means is that the police department is on a 911 call. Let's take like prowler, for instance, somebody who has been called in as maybe like trying to get into a business in the rain. Officers will show up on scene and they'll have a conversation with this person and find out that they're houseless, they're hungry, any number of needs that aren't being met. And they'll call for the CSO unit, and we can take that person to a shelter. We can take that person to get food. We can sit down and spend some time talking to them about what kinds of resources that they've utilized in the past, what has worked for them before and what might work, what they haven't tried as far as like getting back on their feet. And so that's the officers will call us out, to help someone move on to like the next step rather than arresting them, or if no crime has been committed, but they still want to provide service to that person or persons. And then also CSOs we can on view a call, which means that like if I see someone in our community who looks like they need something, I can put myself on and assist the public and check in with that person and see what they need. As an example, Katie was saying that I should give you guys real life examples. So this last weekend, we were on a premise in downtown Seattle, which just means we were walking around the area, and we ran into a gentleman who was sleeping on the floor in a parking garage, and the parking garage attendant was trying to ask him to leave, and we asked if we could, offer any service connection to this person, and he didn't have any shoes on, and he didn't have a jacket. So he said, "Look, I'm cold. I have nowhere. I have no shoes. Like I'm having a hard time like moving on with my day." And we actually had some shoes that were donated by Target here at the office, and so we came back here, got some shoes for him, and a warm jacket, and were able to get him into a better state so that he could get out of the parking garage. And it was such a rewarding, it's just one step in a long process of what else this person maybe needs in order to get back on their feet. But being able to provide warmth on such a cold day, and just a pair of shoes, it's remarkable how many people don't have shoes on in our city. And it's such a little thing that we're able to do that officers aren't always able to, provide. And it helps officers, move on with their day. And it also gives us an opportunity to connect with our community in a really real and personal way. This is North Precinct specific, and this was just the last 2 months. So since January 1st of this year, we've had 140 events in North Precinct that CSO unit was part of. We have a standing footbeat in the Ballard area. So that's an area that we try to regularly have CSOs in. We're building relationships. We have a great relationship with the library in Ballard. They often call us to help someone get connected to resources. Yeah, I'll pause. Well, I guess I'll just go through it all and then do questions at the end, if that works, Katie.
That's great. That's great. And reminder to folks, you can put your questions in the chat too.
Cool. Okay, so I spoke about this a little bit. Like, what are we doing? We're navigating the resources that are available in the city of Seattle and connecting our community to those resources. So we have, relationships with some houseless individuals, but it's not just homelessness. It's everything from domestic violence to car accidents. But there is a very large part of our job that is focused on the houseless population and helping people get food, telling them where to get a hot meal for the day, connecting them to shelter. And then, so whenever I talk about like, what do we do? It's two-tier, right? We connect people to resources, but then we also do community outreach, community engagement. And that is everything from like participating in track practice for a local, kid track team to, talking with small businesses or even chain businesses about what they're seeing, where do they need support. Like, for example, we have some really great community partners all over the city, but definitely in North Seattle also, where a business, if they have like a houseless person sitting here, sorry, somebody tried to hand me something. Yeah, the community outreach. So if you're a business owner, we can come in and just say, hi, we're the CSO unit. And if you have anyone coming in who needs resource connection, like, you can call us. We have a desk line here. It's not open to the public desk line. We still want the community calling 911. But if you're a business owner and you have a very specific ask, or if you're one of our community partners like Parks and Recreation, or the libraries, right? And let's say that there's somebody who's needs a resource, right? We can show up on scene without patrol, without TLPD, and provide that resource connection. As long as there's nothing violent happening, as long as there's no danger to the public, in which case, obviously, we would recommend that they call 911 instead. So like I said, it's all about building a better relationship with the community and the police department through really like hands-on personal relationships. Youth outreach. So this is one of the core pillars of the CSO unit is around youth outreach, and the flyer I was just being handed is the CSO unit is actually hosting a basketball combine, which is like a competition for high school seniors. And what's really unique about this is that a couple people on our team, specifically CSO Clyde Weems and Vicky Pinkham and Kevin Hendricks, they've been contacting the local high schools to get those, get students from different high schools to come and compete against each other, but in front of college coaches. So a lot of the local Seattle-based and outside of Seattle colleges that have basketball teams, we're going to be able to bring together this incredible opportunity for these students to get to talk to college coaches about their futures. And it's going to be such a fun event and a way for officers to engage with local community. I'm really excited about it. It's in April. I can definitely send you all the flyer if you have anyone that you know in your lives that are that age. It's in North Seattle. It's going to be at Bitter Lake Community Center on April 19th. So we've talked a lot about like CSOs connecting the community to resources. And I told you all a story about coming back here to get shoes. These are all donations that we have procured, and we're constantly running out, particularly of, clothing, jackets, and shoes, to provide our community, in as part of that relationship building. So we have shoes, we have hats and gloves, we have baby formula, dog food, car seats. These are biodegradable blankets that we got from Union Gospel Mission. And that doesn't mean that they like fall apart right away, but they are, if after like 2 years, if they get wet, they will decompose. This is just some examples of the like primary calls that we get as a CSO unit. So getting someone into housing, those basic human needs, water, snack bags, helping someone understand like where are their free medical or dental clinics, working with animal control on pet care, education, anything related to youth, CPS, aging and disability. We've had a fairly surprising role in the refugee and immigration over the last summer, just with a ton of migrants who have shown up in the local area seeking asylum with nowhere to go. So we've partnered with some local churches and Mary's Place and just trying to navigate that very scary system or, situation for our asylum seekers. We have clothing, we have socks, we work very closely hand in hand with the Seattle Police Department officers on domestic violence calls. And there's also a victim support team that we work hand in hand with. And that's one of the bigger, pieces, I would say, of our role is being able to support those victims in getting into a safety plan and getting the resources they need in the moment after a very scary event. Let's see. Supporting businesses. Here's how you can contact us. This is our desk phone. I'm okay with you guys using it. But so for example, when might you call a CSO? Let's say you're taking your dog for a walk in the park and you encounter someone who looks like who's telling you like, yeah, I need help getting into shelter. You could call the CSO unit, and as long as that person is calm and under control, we can come out and speak to them about services. If you know local businesses, you can please share our phone number with them. We are staffed 7 days a week, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We can stay late if we're already on a call. And then we have our website here, which I can put in the chat afterwards. Yeah, that is it. Do we have any questions? Wait, I'm sorry. This is what I ran to get. I wanted to tell you guys about this. This is a Courageous Lion, which is part of our Courageous Lions for Courageous Kids program. It has a little CSO badge and a Seattle Police Department tag. So the Seattle Police Foundation purchased these as part of a grant after one of our CSOs was on a traumatic call with some very young kids were part of the call, and he happened to grab a lion as a stuffed animal on the way out the door and was able to share with the young boy on the call that he was a courageous lion. And he was like, I'm going to give this to my little sister. And so out of that sort of bloomed this program that we just rolled out last week. And I'll put some links to different news stories. This has been on Como, it's been on Fox 13 and King 5, sharing this new opportunity for officers to give kids a lion, but it's not just the stuffed animal. This lion comes with a certificate of courage, which I have right here. And it comes with free multiple visits to the Harbor View Trauma Center. So kids who are having these horrible traumatic experiences can immediately at the front line be given the opportunity to work through that trauma with a professional.
Oh, that's great.
We are all very proud of the program.
Did you want me to read some of the questions to you from the chat?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't even see that.
So you mentioned a standard foot beat. Are there others besides the one you referenced in Ballard?
Yeah, right now we have 3 regular foot beats: the downtown core, Rainier to Seward Park, and Ballard. So those are the core ones, and we don't have enough staff for the chain of command to demand too many more of those as something that we're supposed to do regular, like every day. But if you know of a neighborhood that could use some CSO engagement, please let us know.
I think you probably are going to get 25 phone calls with having just made that offer. Thank you. Are there resources you don't have that you believe you need? And I would also add to that, you showed your supply locker. Can people or businesses donate directly to the CSO team, or does it have to go through some other?
That's such a kind ask. So with the way that I think donations work with the department is that it needs to technically be donated to the Seattle Police Foundation, but then it would come to us. Whether that, so we actually have built this amazing relationship with Target where they have set aside money that they donate to the community, and they've essentially said that if we need something, we can call them. And what that has looked like has been Christmas gifts for some really amazing children who had a really tough year that we were working with. It also looked like a car seat for a mom when we didn't have a spare one, and things like that. They also recently they asked me that exact question, and I said men's shoes. So just the number of people that we end up giving shoes to because their shoes are no longer working for them. They've gotten wet, they're ripped. So
yeah,
we're always looking for jackets and men's shoes.
Okay, that's good to know. So Seattle Police Foundation, and we can follow up with some information about that when we send out the minutes. Do you get involved in many calls around the Aurora area, or do the prostitution and drug issues tend to require commissioned officers?
So it depends on the issue, right? I mean, obviously we cover the Aurora area, so we're up there often, and not typically because of prostitution. There is whole communities up there. We have worked with victims of I don't know if they would call themselves victims of trafficking, but with some people in that profession. And that looked like driving them to a shelter after a domestic violence call, that has looked like offering to be available for them if needed. But if there's like a 911 call, officers will make the scene safe before they call for the CSO unit.
Right. Rudy has a comment, Crown Hill Safeway would like to invite you to set up a table for a future event. It would include CSOs and crime prevention coordinators, like coffee with a cop. You can email him if you're interested and he'll get you connected. His email is in the chat. And if you need it and don't get it quick, we can certainly also send it to you. Rudy participates a great deal in NPAC, so we'd be happy to help.
Sure.
Rudy at Gmail.
Okay. Rudy. Cool.
Okay, next question. Can you please expand on the victim support resource? And I should mention, we do plan to have them come talk to us this spring.
Oh, great. So yeah, the victim support team is they have volunteers that are available to respond to patrol calls on the weekends, and just an incredible group of volunteers. But they also have several paid full-time staff that are absolutely incredible. They are technically fall under the Department of Human Services, but they can get us a hotel if it's a victim of a crime. They have car seats and clothing, well, like baby stuff for lots of like moms of domestic violence. We work very hand in hand with that team. I actually have some flyers right here on my desk. So I can share these with you and give you a link to their site.
That would be great. Can you explain a little more about the differences between the CSOs, care team, and crime prevention coordinators?
Yes, and that one was on my list. So the community service officers, we work for the Seattle Police Department, and so do the crime prevention coordinators. But crime prevention coordinators, their job description is like crime prevention, which was too obvious of an answer. But so they do things like they can do classes for like a staff on like how to stay safe walking to and from the building, or de-escalation type trainings, or they might show up at a Girl Scout meeting and talk about public safety in general. They also do a lot of tabling to help people like really understand policing, the Seattle Police Department more. If you're a business and you want to understand or like to ask questions about how to make your business safer, you would call the crime prevention coordinators, and they would do what's called a CPTED assessment. So that's really the big difference, is that we respond to specifically to patrol calls in the field with officers, and the crime prevention team there's only 5 of them, 6 for the whole city, and they're very specifically doing those sort of public safety engagement tools. And then care is not with the Seattle Police Department at all. They fall under the new care department, and they're actually called crisis responders. Not the care is just the nickname that they have. But the city of Seattle has created a new city department called care, right? And the 911 center now falls under care. And I should alternative response. I don't remember actually what it stands for specifically, but think of it as like the city of Seattle now has 3 different departments related to public safety. We've got fire, police, and care. And so we all work together, and specifically the care team is only for the downtown core, and they are helping SPD with connecting specifically people that are in crisis to assistance. So that's a lot more with working with the crisis response network versus like us. We can do a much wider range of assistance, and we're citywide.
Okay. I think this might be meant on just from a CSO point of view. Dave is asking, what do you think is the most important challenge facing SPD that we voters can help solve? How can we help? I know that's kind of bigger than your division, but do you have any input to that? Or
I guess it's hard not to immediately think of just the sheer volume of homelessness that we're experiencing as a city. The drug addiction in our city is staggering. So making sure that we're educating the next generation on the, you know, against drugs. I think that that's a really important piece of the puzzle. And then also just, we have a lot of resources in Seattle, but we still don't have a sufficient amount of resources. And that specifically looks like shelter that is easy to access, is open 24/7, 365, because there's almost nothing available on the weekend. And so we are really fighting for there to be a wider range of shelter for people to access so that they can get connected to case management. They can get, into some sort of substance abuse treatment if that's what they need, or they can get away from their abuser if that's what they need. There's not enough. Mary's Place is wonderful, but despite having like 6 buildings, they are insufficient for the needs of our community.
Next question from Diane. So if CSO's availability ends at 8 p.m., do we then ask for the care team?
You can call 911 and ask for the care team. That's the only way to reach that unit. They are also second responders right now, meaning that they rarely, right? Sometimes we are first dispatch, but very rarely. So it depends on what you need. Like that, I unfortunately can't, it's so specific to what you're calling about on who I would say you should call.
Just the general advice is call 911.
Yeah, and explain what you're looking for. And if you're specifically saying that you don't want officer response, the dispatcher is going to make that determination based on what you're describing is happening. So, if it's somebody acting erratically, throwing things, right, you're going to get a police response. If it's, I have someone who's unsheltered, they might be able to dispatch care. Mm-hmm. And the care works from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay, great. Well, so far, that's the end of our questions. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on? Did we catch all of the questions that we sent you in advance?
I think so. Yeah, there was, I guess, one other example, like specific. So your, the North CSOs are Jane Dorr, Jeffrey Stubbe, and Helene Macer. And then the second, sorry, for the North Precinct Advisory Council, your CSOs are Jane Dorr and Chris Harding. So if you have any specific questions, that's who you should be working with, and I can send that contact information, and you might already have it. I know that Jane has worked really closely with some of you on understanding stuff that was on the SPD blotter, but that's the kind of relationship that we can have is helping you understand like what's going on. If you're worried about something specifically in your neighborhood that there might have been police response at, we can help.
Yeah.
Make a full circle in that public safety concern.
Yeah, Jane's been wonderful. She's really easy to work with, and it's been super helpful. So we really appreciate that. So
yeah, she was sorry she couldn't do this presentation, and
yeah.
I said I wouldn't let her down. So everyone tell her that I did a good job.
You didn't let her down. You did a great job. Thank you very much for taking the time tonight. We really appreciate it. And so now we'll remove the spotlight from you. You can just be a regular citizen again. And you can stay if you like or whatever.
Oh, I'll stay on.
Cool. So up next is Captain Agard. And I will find you in here somewhere. There you are. And spotlight you. There you are. All right, Captain. If you're there, you are.
I'm here. Sorry, I have a little cold, so my voice is a little off tonight.
We don't have a picture. Is that your preference? It's a
no. Oh, there. Is that there we go.
There we go.
That little slide always gets shut up on the top there. Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that presentation. That was very informative. I learned a lot there. And, you know, just to clarify a little bit, the care team right now, the crisis responders is still a pilot program downtown only. So they do not respond North Precinct yet. It's just a downtown. They're expecting to expand, but right now it's just downtown. Okay, so looking at some crime stats here, year to date, looking at violent crime and property crime together, overall crime this year's as when compared to last year is down 12%. Looking at just violent crime, rape, robbery, assault, that is up 17% year to date in the North Precinct. Property crime is down 15%, except for motor vehicle theft, which is still up 20%. So that kind of continues to go up citywide. Burglaries down 26%, which is good. Another area that's a little up right now in the north end are the shots fired. So far this year in the north end, we've had 31 shots fired incidents. 20 of those were casings found, so there were confirmed shots fired. 10 were where victims were actually injured, shot, and then there was one fatality from a shooting. The largest percentage of the shots fired is in the Nora sector part of it's spread out, but the highest is in Nora sector, which is along Aurora, west of I-5. So that is kind of our flashpoint up there on Aurora and 105th for the North Precinct. We had the mobile precinct out at the Crown Hill Safeway. I don't know if any of you saw it up there. Not this week, but the past week we had it out there for 5 days. I know Rudy saw it because he was the one that I appreciate Rudy. He set it up and assisted us with working with Safeway to put it in their lot up there. So thank you, Rudy. My goal here coming up, starting whenever we can, when we have staffing, I'm going to start putting a couple bikes officers out in the commercial areas during the day when we can do that, to get the officers out there in the community. So if you see some bikes out there, that's my plan for the springtime when staffing allows. Probably start in the U District and the Ballard area. I know someone's going to ask me this, so I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to give you an update on the online reporting system. I know Katie and I had talked about it with Chief Kibbe yesterday. It's still not up, and it is to explain it. It's still not up. There's bugs in it still. They're still trying to get it online, but even when it does come online, it's not a new system that's going to have like new categories that you can report. It will be similar to the other system, but it's going to be a system that actually works well, because the other online reporting system was not working well. It wasn't uploading things, and it was very hard to navigate. So the hope is that this new system, once we get it up, is going to be working well. One interesting burglary trend that's going on right now, it kind of comes and goes. It was here in Seattle. It's actually going all the way down to the West Coast, so it's kind of a professional ring. They hit several in the North Precinct and the Southwest Precinct. So what they're doing is this one in particular was a U-Haul truck, a stolen U-Haul truck, and they go to businesses like the one here was in Ballard. I believe it was Sam's Tavern there, and they break in, and they somehow know there's a safe in there. They find the safe, like in this tavern. the safe was way in the back. So they go in the back, they tie a chain around the safe, and then they hook it to their stolen vehicle, and they pull it all the way through the business out the door, creating massive amounts of damage to the businesses. And then they take the safe, and then they break the safe open, hoping to get cash in these safes. And they did a couple Safeways and some other businesses. And I am now hearing that it's in California as well. So they're kind of working up and down the West Coast doing these safe burglaries. And from what I hear, we have not caught them yet. And that's about all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me? Any concerns, questions?
If you want me to give you what's in the chat.
Please, yes.
Susan's question, what are the increases in shots fired due to? In other words, gang activity, drug selling activity, or what?
Yeah, I would say it's the activity up on Aurora. Mainly, yeah. That's whenever we see the shots fired go up, it's usually something going on up in the Aurora corridor there, and that's mainly where they're happening.
Okay. Aisha is asking, what was the purpose of the mobile unit at the Crown Hill Safeway?
The purpose is to put it, I don't know if she saw it, it's very large. We deploy it out there just for high visibility. I always ask my officers and sergeants to try to, go there, be around it, take your breaks in there. It's just kind of, it's a force multiplier to deter any criminal activity in the area. I know Safeway gets a lot of thefts as well. So it's to deter criminal activity.
Megan wants to know, are Kias and Hyundais still the top vehicles being stolen?
Yes, they definitely are.
Okay. As a transition for that, I will mention here and remind folks at the end, Jane Dorr was kind enough to offer the North Precinct Advisory Council several steering wheel locks. So we already have given, Rudy was the recipient of one. Rudy.
Oh, good.
But also folks who go out to our Facebook page and just make a comment there that you'd like one, we'll reach out and connect to get one. So if you still need one, we have a few. Go to our Facebook page. Okay,
awesome.
Do we have other questions for the captain? Did we have any updates? I'm trying to recall, did we bring to resolution what was going on with the Ballard student robberies? They caught someone.
Yeah.
Did they identify the ringleader?
Yes. I know I mentioned last time that they had caught the ringleader, and I think one of the interesting facts, unfortunately, is that he's 14, and he also one of his partners was his 13-year-old sister. So it's just incredible how young these subjects are that are out committing these crimes.
Let's see. Anybody else have any questions here? Any hands to raise? If you can use the reactions at the bottom. Any other questions for the captain? This is your opportunity. Looks like you're getting off with a little time to spare. Oh, Rudy, you have a question. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Hey, thank you, Captain, for finding my truck. And Katie, thank you for that club. I don't think anybody's going to be taking that big pickup truck anymore in the future because it's going to be a real pain. Really appreciate you dropping it off to the house. And that Officer Mitchell, he's the man. He actually saw it on the road and kind of gave an area where it was located. And we were able to go from there and find it. And Officer Morehouse and Zoo, nice officers. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, great feedback. Yeah, those are awesome officers. Was your truck returned undamaged? Was there much damage?
It was cleaned out, but it was also it's an easy fix. But I did learn that a club will definitely be a deterrent the next time they try. So it's back in action. It ain't pretty, but it runs great and ready to cut some grass. And one last thing, Captain,
Yeah,
People really enjoyed that mobile precinct at Crown Hill. Everybody was talking about and people were taking hey Rudy, can you take a picture of me in front of the precinct? No
Okay.
problem, ma'am. So anyway,
Yeah.
positive feedback.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rudy. Appreciate your assistance.
Great. We have another question out here. Diane, you had your hand up, but it looks like it's down now. Did you get your question answered?
Well, I hadn't heard that the students that were being robbed, that you caught them and they are 13 and 14, because I recall other 13 and 14-year-olds. And then I've been seeing a lot in the news about how because of their young age that they are released often quickly, and it's really hard to get much information on them. But can you just talk about the challenges for SPD on how to stop these young people who we have to protect their innocence, but at the same time we are still being victimized?
Yeah, I mean, that's our hot topic right now is juvenile crime, because there's so much of it. I'm sure you guys also saw the pursuit on the news where Guardian 1, our helicopter kind of from the air, was following the pursuit, and then the two very young juveniles got out and ran with the guns. They were doing carjackings, very young. I'll have Megan Westfall maybe touch on the challenges that she's aware of. But for us, when we get juveniles, I mean, we can't even question them. So when we stop them, we can't question them. We have to right away ask them, get them an attorney, whether they say yes or no. We have to have them talk to an attorney before we can even question them. And then once they call the attorney says, don't talk to the police. And so it's really hard to investigate juvenile crime because of that one thing there. And then, yes, they do get out. I think the 14-year-old for the Ballard robberies was released with a home monitor. And that might be a good solution, because then they're home and they're tracked. So but yes, they do get released, and then I'll let Megan talk about it, but it takes a lot to really get them prosecuted and any time served. So
yeah, so I can say a little bit. So, with city attorney's office, we don't have jurisdiction over juveniles. That's the King County Prosecutor's Office that prosecutes them. So I don't necessarily want to punt, but if, Casey was on the call, he'd probably be the better person to talk about it. But I can kind of talk in kind of general terms about what I know about the juvenile system. So like with any criminal case, there is a presumption of release. When someone's charged with a crime, adult crimes, juvenile crimes, and with juvenile crimes, that presumption is, generally in favor of releasing the juvenile back to their parents, to their guardian, whoever it is. So that's kind of one hurdle that I know the prosecutors face. The second hurdle is that juvenile crimes, just like crimes charged in Superior Court, are governed by statute as to what a person can be sentenced to. So misdemeanor crimes that we prosecute, we have discretion. We can sentence you from 0 days or some sort of diversion all the way up to 364, the maximum. But in juvenile court, it's basically a grid. They look at the type of crime you've committed, and that type of crime is given a value. And then they look at your history, and it falls into a box. And then within that box that's the standard range for what a person can be sentenced. And for a lot of crimes, the standard range falls between 0 and 30 days. I think, and don't quote me on this, but more serious crimes and having felony points can get you the range of 15 to 36 weeks. So we're not looking at a ton of time, and that's all governed by statute. I can pop that statute into the chat in a little bit if you give me some time. But those are kind of some of the challenges. Is, there are statutory limitations to what the prosecutor's office can ask for. And I don't know if Casey is here. I don't see him, but he might be a good person to maybe touch base on this topic at the next NPAC too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're trying. I've talked to Casey, and they're trying to do their best with the high utilizers and the most violent juvenile crimes. But yeah, they're trying their best.
Great.
Thank you, Megan.
And we're almost up to you, Megan, but I think there's still, Sarah has a question for the captain. What efforts are you taking to clean up Aurora Avenue? Big question.
Clean up Aurora Avenue. Well, I think the best thing that we have done, and Megan Westfall did most of the work on it, is to the abatement that we did on the 2 hotels there, where they had to, we're basically, they're in an agreement with us for 2 years where they have to have private security, they have to abide by a bunch of rules. So it's really cleaned up those 2 hotels to where, you know, right now they don't have a lot of customers because they can't have any of the human trafficking or the, you know, prostitution in or around their hotels. So that has been very beneficial for Aurora. I know our Vice unit does operations up there. They try to do as much as they can up there. We patrol it up there. Our officers that work up there patrol it. They try to have high visibility. But yeah, right now that's what we do, and it's better up there than it was a couple of years ago.
Great. Okay, it appears we have tapped out all the questions for you tonight, Captain. So
Okay, thank you
very much.
Yeah.
And now we will move on to Megan. And Megan, you are on.
Okay, great. So I wanted to let the group know we just, at the City Attorney's Office, just released our latest quarterly report. When Ann Davison took office, the City Council passed an ordinance that required more transparency from the City Attorney's Office as to what we do with respect to filing cases, dismissals, declines, things like that. So it's actually been really great because we're, you know, get to reflect on the work we do every quarter. And so the last quarter would have been Q4 of last year. And so I wanted to kind of share some of the statistics from that. So in the last quarter of last year, we received over 2,500 referrals from SPD, which is quite a few referrals. That puts us on track for about 10,000 referrals a year from the police department. However, it's a 2% decrease from Q3, the quarter that preceded that, and a 6% decrease from Q4 of the preceding year. So we were definitely seeing a decline in referrals. And, you know, while we can't pinpoint one specific reason for that, we do kind of attribute it to the staffing crisis that SPD is seeing, right? So SPD is responding to the most serious calls, the priority 1 calls, the priority 2 calls, and most of those cases, you know, end up being felony type crimes. So I think the staffing crisis is contributing to us seeing less misdemeanor cases coming to our office. And generally speaking, we see a large amount of referrals from SPD that occur in the North Precinct. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We're almost half the city, so it would be logical that we'd receive a lot of referrals. The 3 main categories we receive are domestic violence cases, and then what we call criminal traffic cases. So your DUIs, your suspended licenses, reckless driving, things like that. And then non-domestic violence, non-traffic cases. So assaults, thefts, trespasses, and those types of cases. So our domestic violence cases, we kind of mapped it out to kind of see where we're seeing the trends in the North Precinct. And it may not come as any surprise, but we tend to see more domestic violence cases where we have a higher density of housing. So in the North Precinct, that's really reflected in the Lake City area and also on the Aurora corridor, and as well as, interestingly enough, Wallingford area. So those are kind of the 3 highest concentrations of domestic violence in the North Precinct. With criminal traffic cases, we also kind of mapped that out to see where are the trends, where are we seeing this? So, you know, what kind of like proactive work can we look at? And so the highest places for that are really the concentrations of nightlife and of bar scenes. And in the North Precinct, we don't have quite the nightlife or bar scene that you would see in the West Precinct or the East Precinct, but the area, there's some areas of North Aurora, Fremont, and Ballard, we tend to see a higher concentration of our criminal traffic cases, so like our DUIs. And then for all the other types of cases, the trends kind of look towards commercial areas. And so in our precinct, it was really those areas, kind of Northgate area and the University District. So I kind of wanted to go through the different districts and talk about the types of cases we see from them and the percentages and whatnot. So in District 4, which is going to kind of be your Northeast Seattle area, we had 176 referrals from SPD in that quarter, which is about 7% of the referrals citywide. We saw referrals for domestic violence, court order violations, assault, weapons charges, harassment, theft, and DUI, all from District 4. In District 5, which is going to be further north, Lake City type area, Northgate area, we had quite a few more referrals. We had 296 referrals from SPD in that quarter, which kind of tracks with what I was saying about where we see the trends in the crime being committed. So you have the more dense housing. You also have the commercial area there at Northgate. And that made up about 12% of the referrals citywide. And then in District 6, which is going to be your like Northwest Seattle area, Ballard, whatnot, we saw like quite a few referrals, 174 referrals from SPD in that quarter, which was again about 7 to 8% of referrals citywide. Again, kind of all the different areas that we talked about: domestic violence, court order violations, assaults, weapons charges, and things like that. Finally, we kind of dove into some of the statistics around our high utilizer initiative. And I've spoken about this initiative before at NPAC, but this initiative started when Ann Davison took office in March of 2012, shortly thereafter in March of 2022. That really the aim of the program is to kind of highlight those people who are having the biggest impact on the community based on their criminal activity. And, it's one of those kind of simple things that a lot of us already know, that a small number of people are responsible for a disproportionately high amount of the crime. And so we really tried to pinpoint who those people were and try to come up with strategies to, decrease and eliminate their criminal activity. And so we kind of run some stats. Now we've had about 2 years of this. So we have some good data to look at. And so before a person was placed on the high utilizer initiative list, they averaged about 6.1 referrals a year, so about one every 60 days or so. While they were part of the high utilizer initiative list, they would average 2 referrals a year, so about one every 180 days. And then after being removed from the list, and I think this is the best statistic that I've seen yet, they would average 0.5 referrals a year, or about one every 743 days. So what we've seen from it is that being on the list, staying on the list, and then eventually being removed from the list can really have a huge decrease in the amount of activity that we see from these people. So, we attribute this program as being highly successful just because we have seen such a drastic decrease in referrals from these people that were just such a plague on SPD resources in a very active population, especially in the North Precinct. So that's really all I had to talk about tonight. Are there any questions? I can check the chat real quick and see if there's anything.
I think one that was requested by a comment you made was Carrie says ART, aggression replacement training, is a great evidence-based program for youth. I used to teach it as a gang specialist, and I may start offering classes again. It's effective. So that's a good thing to know. Rudy is saying that he feels Aurora is better.
That's great to know. Thanks. Yeah.
I would say so too. I have to cross Aurora many times. And Megan, let's see.
What percentage of the trials? So I don't have the report handy, Rudy, but I will go ahead and send you an email with the report. And I do think we break down percentages of people found guilty and not guilty at trial. So I don't have that handy, but I'll get that to you. I might even be able to find it during the rest of the meeting. So if I can't, I'll send you an email with that. And then how long are people usually on that list? So it really varies. We every quarter we look at the list and we decide to make removals based on, inactivity. Sometimes it's because the person's connected with services and they're in housing and they're doing well. Other times, people have moved out of the area. They've taken their criminal activity elsewhere. A lot of times it's because the person's been in custody and we have seen a decrease in their activity because of that. And so when we see decreases in activity for whatever reason it is, we track that. And then we'll remove people from the list when we see about 6 months of inactivity. The flip side of that too is that we will add people to the list that, SPD or other, community partners tell us are becoming very active in the community. And so I don't have a good set point for how long people are on the list, but I would say kind of anecdotally, people usually stay on it for about at least 3/4 before they're removed. And if you're removed and you go back to your old ways and start committing crimes, we add you back onto it. But I could, Henry, I could get you probably some pretty good data from our data guy too.
Great.
Anybody
Okay,
else?
that looks like it. And I see Casey has joined us. Happy to see that.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
That's okay.
Diane, go ahead.
I just can't listen as quickly as you can talk. You're really fast talking.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm in Northgate, D5. I heard you say 296, and did you say that's a quarter of citywide? And what is that? What is that number about again?
So 290 in D5, we 296 referrals from SPD that quarter, and it's about 12% of the referrals citywide. So a referral is the referral is the word we use for anytime SPD sends us a case to consider for filing of charges.
Okay, thank you.
And so a referral could encompass more than one criminal charge in it. So for example, someone could commit a DUI, they could also be recklessly driving, have a suspended license, a whole bunch of different things, but that would just count as one referral. So it's not necessarily indicative of all of the crime, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, I think you are free to go. Am I correct that Casey is the one who would answer a question that's come to me about following up on the victims of the Ballard school robberies, or is that you, Megan? Is that Casey?
I think that's in Casey's wheelhouse.
Okay, then I am going to remove the spotlight. And Casey, if you want to give your update, we do have a question for you. I'll give you it when you're done in the chat.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Just right off the bat, in that Ballard case, if you have an incident number, I can look it up right now and see if that case was sent to us or where it is in the process. A couple of items that come to mind. Citywide, there were 3 murder cases that were filed this afternoon. You might see that in the news today. I don't think that any of them were in the North Precinct. They were all from downtown and First Hill cases, but it's encouraging to see those cases referred to us. And also, we just want to reassure people that when we get those, we're going to act on them right away when we have the evidence to do so. A big thank you to Don Blakeney and the University District Partnership. Last Tuesday, we went out, the King County Prosecutor's Office and the City Attorney's Office and folks from Sarah Nelson's office and Bob Kettle and Councilmember Rivera's office too was there, and the mayor's office, and heard some really frustrating stories that are even more frustrating for the business owners on the Ave, talking about the really tremendous hardships that they've had to face. And we just wanted to be there to hear from them firsthand and to hopefully have more frequent communication and to let them know that when we have those cases referred to us and we have the evidence to charge those, we will. And we're going to have our juvenile division head out there to do another walkthrough with those same folks as well. So we'll keep you posted on that. A little bit of good news. Just today, we learned that the bill that one of our senior deputy prosecutors, Gary Ernsdorf, wrote about catalytic converter theft made it through the House and the Senate, and the amendments were approved by the House too. So what this means is Gary saw the cases of catalytic converter theft that were coming to his desk and realized how much time it took for police to get these cases worked up and sent to us, and how difficult it was for police to get the evidence to prove those cases, in part because there wasn't a universal marker on the catalytic converters. And so you would have somebody who would rip off a catalytic converter, get a block or two away. You'd have a situation where you would have a police officer who would see somebody with what is obviously a stolen catalytic converter, but not have a way to trace it back to a car consistently. And there were even cases where officers saw piles and piles of catalytic converters, didn't have a way to trace those back to the individual vehicles. And in the cases where they were able to, the statewide sentencing guidelines are much shorter than what most people would like. And so what Gary did was he was on a task force for the state and realized that not only was there a lack of follow through with the people who were illegally buying these catalytic converters, but also that there was an opportunity to mark these on people's cars to make it easier to prove those cases. And he heard folks saying, well, there's already inspections, and he went and found that there were not, and couldn't find evidence of a single inspection of a metal buyer. And so he said, we've got to fix this. So the bill that he wrote that was introduced by Representative Ryu in the House really targets the dealers who are illegally buying these scrap metal pieces. And what's great too is there are many scrap metal buyers who are in support of this bill, because the people who are doing it right have nothing to worry about. This really just goes after the bad guys, and it's great to see lawmakers. It's great to see lawmakers take action on that, and so we anticipate that that'll be signed by Governor Inslee here in the next few months, and then will take effect hopefully later this year. So that should, by targeting and having thousands and thousands of dollars in penalties for people who are found to be buying these improperly, and having that clear follow through and inspections will hopefully drive the market for these and make it clear that it's not worth buying these, because there's going to be very swift and quick follow through. So that's a little bit of good news on something that is certainly affecting the North End, but really all areas of the city and county. Let me take a look in the chat, because I'm sure there's some questions here too.
Megan has provided an incident number for you to look up.
Oh, hey, great. Thanks. Nice. Yeah, let me take a look at that right now.
Sure. And in the meantime, if anyone else has questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. We have some time this evening if you have some more questions for Casey.
Okay. Just put that in our system right here. It looks like that case hasn't been sent to us yet. So when, let me switch back here, sorry. So I searched two ways by the incident number, 23-272-644. And also I added the 20 in front of the 23. So 2023-272-644. Usually when a case isn't sent to us like that, it's either one of two things. It's either sent to the city attorney's office if the police investigators think that they have evidence for only a gross misdemeanor or misdemeanor, which I don't think is the case here. It sounds like what is more likely, although SPD would know officially, what's more likely when we don't see a referral like that is it usually is with the detectives still. So just because we don't have a referral to make a charging decision yet does not mean the prosecutors have declined it or that we will not act on it. Anytime within the statute of limitations, if we get that case, we can act on it. So I can check back before next month's meeting to see if we have that one sent to us yet.
That would be great. Here, can you expand on the difficulties prosecuting minors?
Yeah, probably the best example was, and I'll share the link to this in just a second. Sarah Jean Green at the Seattle Times did a very thoughtful story that explained the challenges in a recent West Seattle homicide case involving a teenager who was killed, and talked to our homicide prosecutors for that, and really kind of laid out what they see. There's a new state law that went into effect that limits how police can question juveniles, and the difficulty that creates, and what police have talked about, is it can be very difficult to identify who's a witness and who was involved in the crime if no one is able to be interviewed there. And we understand where the defense attorneys are coming from in that. It certainly doesn't make investigations any easier. And so we are seeing that effect. Part of what our juvenile division is doing to try to get these important crimes solved is working with police officers when they have questions, not only on individual cases, but also we have a weekly session called J-Watch, which is where officers can call, with any kind of general questions, almost like office hours for a teacher. I mean, not that we're the teacher, they're the investigators. That's just an easy comparison. But it's every Thursday they can call up and they've got that number, and anything they want to talk about, we can walk through with them. And it's been very successful so far. We've received loads of questions. And so it's encouraging to see that communication. And I'll add that story from Sarah in the chat here. Looks like those are the only questions so far.
It looks like it. Anyone else have a question this evening for Casey? I think you are done for the evening.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. You slipped in there right at the perfect
Right
time.
in time. Yeah.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Hang on, 2 more messages. You slipped that in there.
Yeah.
Carrie asks, any active coalitions that are working on juvenile crime prevention?
There's lots of things that are being done to work on juvenile crime prevention. There are a number of things, and those are largely funded by the executive's office, which is really helpful for us. Part of what we try to do is, and where this comes from is, very often if you deal with kids and say, hey, you can do better, and give them that stern talking to, it doesn't resonate as much if someone like me says it, as opposed to or compared to somebody who has their same life experience, who they can relate to. And so that's where those community groups really come in and are very beneficial. And the key is to try to reach those youth before they get to the point of carjackings or armed robberies or crimes with guns, because when you get to that point, it's not a diversion case, and it's not going to be. You've got to try to reach kids when they are still, when they haven't escalated their behavior to the point that it is so serious that you have to go before a judge. What I mean there are the very low level offenses that still need accountability, but where state lawmakers have set clear guidelines that those are not crimes that come with long jail sentences. But still trying to, it's not a free pass either, trying to get that outreach to make sure that the message gets across, and then sometimes we still do see kids where the first case that comes to us is a very, very serious crime. And that's not a diversion case either. Like if you carjack somebody with a gun, do not expect diversion. And what we frequently see are really traumatic situations at home. And it can be very difficult to make up for that. That's why these community groups need to have this important role that they have, and be well funded to do that hard work, to hopefully try to address problems before they escalate. And also, there are many ongoing efforts too, of addressing the high level crimes that we see. And part of why we're seeing so many stories about crimes with juveniles in the news is, and I can share this data too, is that the numbers are going back to what we saw in 2019 and 2018. We saw a drop where we saw an increase in adult crime during the pandemic in certain categories. We saw a drop in juvenile crime. And part of that is because you don't have kids together in class, the more you see youth in groups, typically across all cities. What you see generally are the level of reported crimes going up. So we saw those go down during the pandemic. What we're not saying is, hey, that was all our good work, because we know that's not the case. We know those were anomaly years. But because you didn't see those crimes over the last couple of years, it seems like it's an unbelievable increase. It is an increase. It's going back to where it was in 2018, 2019. That's not something to celebrate, but it's something to keep in focus too, in the right context, to know that, we're not seeing off the chart numbers that we have never seen before. It's something that we have to address promptly and effectively and in a collaborative way.
So we have one more question. I'll get her in a moment, but before I leave that one, can you maybe send our North Precinct Advisory Council email a couple just links to example groups that we can include in our minutes?
Sure. Yeah, you bet.
Groups, that would be great.
Yeah.
Diane, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. And by the time I tried to type it out in the chat, he might be gone. So I have read, and so I don't know if this is true or if it's just a rumor, but that there are gangs that are recruiting the children because they are aware that they can't be prosecuted, they can't be held, they can't be questioned, all of the above that we've been hearing. Is that true at all?
I haven't heard that specifically, although I'm not aware of every referral. That would probably be something that the gang unit with SPD or the sheriff's or investigators with the sheriff's office would know best on it. Well, I don't know exactly on that rumor. I know that police investigators are very up to speed on rumors like that and others, and so I think it's safe to presume that if it's something that you've heard, I'm sure that the gang unit and others have heard that too, and if there's legitimacy to it, I'm sure that police and others are taking thoughtful actions on it. That may not be very reassuring because it's pretty general, but that's the best that I know now, and I can certainly ask our juvenile division to see if they have seen specific examples of that.
That would be great. We can follow up next month with you and with the captain. So yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much, Casey. We appreciate it.
You bet. Good to see everybody.
Okay, folks, thank you very much. We're finishing up just a little bit early tonight. Again, a reminder that we do still have a few, there we go. We do still have a few steering wheel locks available. Every time we send out an email, you can find a link to our Facebook page included in the signature line, or we call it out in the agendas. So easy to click on. So if you need one, I think we have 4 or 5 left. You just need to go to our North Precinct Advisory Council Facebook page and put that in the comments, and then we'll reach out behind the scenes to get your information and we'll sort out getting that to you. So please feel free. Those are free. And again, thanks to Jane, who is our connection to the community service officers for the North End. And I think that with that, if there's nothing else. Okay, we do have a question from Megan. How do we get Kia and Hyundai to do more upgrade events? Well, that is probably beyond the scope of this meeting, but we certainly have heard that there's a lawsuit out there with the city of Seattle and others for Kia. So, and Casey has just put a link into one of the community groups. So thanks everyone. We really appreciate your attendance tonight. Look forward to the April meeting. We'll get out with some more information about that coming up soon. And with that, I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you very much. Happy Spring Forward this weekend, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. Oh, and if the board would please stay on, we'll just meet briefly when we're done. Thank you.